Alright, hello everyone. Today I really want to talk to you guys about demons as a way of deconstructing your beliefs. When we talk about deconstruction, there's so much work that needs to be done, and there's so many angles we can attack it from, but one place you may not think to look, at least not right away, is definitely the world of the Ars Goetia. So I'll be the first to tell you that right off the bat, I used to be very, very scared of demons. I really thought that if you said the name of a demon, that it would find you and come get you. And I thought that, these were evil spirits out to hurt us and ruin our souls and take us away from God, and all the kinds of things that people have for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years told you that demons are going to do. But the more we go down this deconstruction, the more we learn to question things that we were previously told are true. And when you deconstruct, sometimes you may find that you ask a question, you question something, and yeah, actually it does hold up. That's okay. It's okay if something that you question turns out to be, pretty legit. That's just kind of the part of investigation that people don't often talk about. But for the most part, when you deconstruct something that you were pretty sure that you knew a lot about, you find that there are some discrepancies and inconsistencies in what is actually true. And for me, one of the biggest places that this happens is very much the fact that Christians and Jewish mystics quite literally invented the playbook for how to safely, to an extent, work with demons. So when we talk about Solomonic magic, the most important thing to understand is that the term Solomonic comes from the legendary King Solomon. There's a lot of apocryphal works and a lot of, just kind of side stories about King Solomon that describe him actually being given a ring by God himself that helps him command certain demons to do things that need to be done. For instance, there is a story that King Solomon managed to bind the demon King Asmodeus and get him to make the temple of God with that demon's strength. That, if you don't know that story because people don't talk about it often, because people don't know about it, you may never know that yes, in fact, a temple of God was built with the strength and might of a demon king. That's pretty interesting information if you've been scared of demons. But of course, looking into Solomonic magic means you then find out that the methods in which they go about handling the demon can be a little questionable, right? And this is where deconstruction kind of has layers and steps, in my opinion. If we're going to look at demons and we think Solomonic magic's a good idea because these demons are still evil and terrible and bad, what if you took that and you broke it down a step further? Now you go from completely swearing off demons to maybe it's okay if I use a type of magic that's a little coercive and rough, to maybe I don't need to do that because the demons are not nearly so aggressive and hostile as people say they will be. That becomes the next part of where you might go logically in your train of thought. That train of thought bringing us to that station brings us to the land of demonologists. Demonologists being people who not only work with demons, but worship them, revere them, honor them for their many talents and capabilities. This is where a lot of people might pause and say, why would you want to worship a demon though? The same reason people would want to worship a god, I guess. A lot of people do see demons as gods. For instance, there is one demon, Baal or Baal, who quite possibly could be actually Baal-Hadad from the Canaanite religion. The same thing happens with Baal-Zebul or Beelzebul or Beelzebub. What happened in the Bible when you learn these stories is that Baal-Zebul, which means Lord of the Lofty Abode, in Hebrew got twisted to Baal-Zebub, which means Lord of the Flies. And so that's why you'll often see Beelzebub, depicted with flies and all these other kinds of things, because it was a derogatory way for the Israelites to say that this Baal, this Lord of the Lofty Abode, was actually nothing more than a lord of the shit pile that the flies swarm around. It's very mean, not really cool, and when you know that, you realize, oh wait a minute, this demon, at least this one specifically, didn't used to be a demon. He actually used to be a god that people loved and revered and gave sacrifices to and all these other things. So that breaks down a wall about that demon, and now we learn, oh, hey, wait a minute. Something here happened along the way, and this isn't so scary as we were told that it was. Others, like, say, for instance, Azazel, are demons that were once angels in heaven. So they're not really demons at all, but rather fallen angels. And so given that they are, or once were, angels in heaven, there is still a little bit of caution to be had, because whether or not an angel is in heaven or not, I have found that they act entirely the same in terms of how they deliver information and how roughly or not roughly they want to deal with you. A lot of angels have a lot of patience, a lot of angels really do not. Likewise, a lot of demons have a lot of patience, and a lot of demons really do not. So, when it comes to that, if you are uncomfortable working with angels, you may find that you are accidentally also kind of uncomfortable working with certain demons, because many of them were once dominions, were once virtues, were once archangels even, and they remember their days being an angel, and now they are doing a very different role. It's also worth noting that if we do go into the Bible and we discover ideas of Satan or Hashatan, which is a whole separate topic that in and of itself can be deconstructed, we find that no angel can really operate unless God gives them permission to, and that includes fallen angels. There's nothing that Hashatan or Satan can do that God does not actively give him permission to do. A great example of this is actually the Book of Job. So in the Book of Job, Hashatan, Satan, does not act of his own accord. He doesn't go out of his way to mess up Job's life on his own volition. He actually brings his proposal to God first and says to God, hey, I don't think Job is rocking with you because he loves you. I think he's rocking with you because you've given him a lot of fortune. Can we put this to the test? I think that I will win this, bet that we're putting on. And God said, sure, go ahead. Take everything from him and see what he does, right? So it's not that Satan went around taking Job's kids, goats, wives, all that stuff unprompted. He got explicit permission from God to do so, which puts a lot of things in perspective and is, once again, in itself a topic bearing its own whole deconstruction. Why would God give these apparently evil angels the ability to run ripshot on people like that? And that's where we discover the fact that actually in Judaism, Satan isn't this evil terrible, but rather Satan, while not the awesomest guy to have around, acts as God's prosecution. And he tries to test people like a prosecutor would to see if they'll slip up and give him something to use in that heavenly court where God is judge, right? So when we know more of the background of some of these demons, when we know the fact that Christian and Jewish mystics were the ones who really figured out who and what they are and how to deal with them, when we figure out that it was actually King Solomon, the Jewish king, who is the reason this is possible at all in Abrahamic lore, that helps break down another few walls. Then, the last thing, and you can really only get here when you get brave enough to encounter the demons yourself, is to realize how little they actually care to mess with humanity, right? So we could talk all day long about what a demon is, what they do, la la la, but the reality is that the kings and presidents and princes of hell, they are not nearly so interested as all the movies and the church makes us feel in terms of messing up our lives, right? They have so many things that they take care of that humans, unless we come to them, or unless they have something to do with us that is important for our growth and development for whatever reason, they really don't care to bother with us. There's this possession idea. It's not really something that big rank demons do because they don't want to deal with that. That's not to say that smaller, goofier little demons don't exist, and in fact, when you look up in the Ars Goetia any of the demons in there and see how it says they have X amount of legions of demons, yes, those legions of demons are made up of smaller spirits that tend to be more personifications of anxiety or personifications of greed or other such things that may plague you. That's not to say that anxiety as a medical condition or mental health concern is a demon. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you are an otherwise not anxious person and suddenly get a big bout of anxiety, maybe it's a little spirit trying to cause trouble for you, a little demon that's just trying to poke at you. Or maybe it's something that bears checking out, right? Mundane over magical, never assume something is a demon. always assume that there is a logical, mundane, clearly observable reason for it out there in the real world. But nonetheless, if you suddenly find yourself being really mean to people out of nowhere for like no discernible reason, maybe there's a little demon of anger hanging around. You don't know. It's just little spirits though. And that's another thing. They're almost like fairies, except where fairies are more neutral with humanity, demons tend to want to provoke us. Little demons. They tend to want to provoke us, and they tend to want to try and poke at us and get us to do silly things. Why? I don't know. Sometimes spirits are just shit-kicking spirits, and they do that. But they are not the big boss demons. The big boss demons, like King Payman, like King Belial, they do not operate that way. If anything, they keep those little runt demons in check. And so they only let those go when someone like God gives them permission to let them go, for whatever reason that God wants to challenge us in those ways. This is where, once saying all demons are terrible and bad, as you slowly deconstruct and learn more things and experience more things, you come to figure this out. So I don't know if you could guess, but a lot of this is both my own research and both my own UPG, or unverified personal gnosis. And let me also add an extra side note that just because a spirit is not a demon does not mean it's not gonna try and mess with you. There are many different types of spirits in the world, and many of them have nothing to do with either God or, the devil or Lucifer or Satan or whoever else. There are some spirits that are just minding their business, but who really don't want you to be minding your business near them. For instance, if you go into the woods and you happen to encounter the Slavic spirit of the forest, the Leshy. The Leshy is a forest guardian. It is objectively neutral, but subjectively, to us, it may be a bad spirit because it considers us a threat to the woods and will try to chase us out. It could also not bother us at all if it decides we are not a threat to the forest, but that does not mean you are safe any more than it's safe to go into a forest is full of wolves. Maybe the wolves won't bother you if you, are respectful, you keep your distance, or you know the proper ways to deal with wolves, but they're still not friendly and not something you're going to walk up and pet either. The same thing applies with these nature spirits and other things outside. Sometimes there are spirits that will, like wild animals, not want you in their space, not want to deal with you, not want to see you, and may even try to attack you. That's not because they're evil, that's because that's just how they are and you're in their space. But when it comes to demons, they're a fantastic way to start deconstructing, because the more you look into them, the more you realize that things aren't quite what they seemed or what you were told your whole life, the more you can actually not only appreciate the other side of the coin, so to speak. If we have God and his angels on one side, if we've got Lucifer and his demons on the other side, it helps you better appreciate that entire ecosystem, but also it helps you reduce the amount of fear. And that is one of the most important parts of deconstructing, is getting rid of that residual fear from years and years and years of people telling you that you have to watch out, that you have to be scared, or else you're going to hell, blah, 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 all this and that, up and down. Fear is a killer of faith. Fear is something that makes people act in ways that is not conducive to their being. And when you can realize that the demon kings and presidents and princes really don't care to bother you, and that any little demon that does try to bother you is something that is very easily dealt with because it's a much tinier spirit than people have been telling you, you don't really walk through the world afraid of demons anymore. You don't walk through the world afraid of a possession. You don't walk through afraid that you're going to have some kind of terrible haunting. You become more confident in your own self, and by extension you become more confident in the one who gave you the power to be your own self, which is God. You know that God's not going to let some spirit come get you unless it's a lesson that you can learn to your benefit. You know that God's not going to let you get just totally run over by some random spirit, and you also know that those spirits probably wouldn't do so to begin with. Not unless you were doing something silly in their space, not unless you somehow were really rude and disrespectful, like with Solomonic magic, to, say, King Payman. Not a great idea to try and coerce a king of hell and browbeat them into doing what you like, as with Solomonic magic, right? But you don't have to work with demons still to start this deconstruction, but it does help to take some time to learn about them, to listen to the points of views of demonologists, and to see how these people interact with demons, why, what for, and what the outcomes are for them. because by learning to listen to other people's point of views and learning to do that research into things that once previously scared you or people told you to stay away from, you do find out that there's a lot less to be worried about than you thought, and you can, even if you don't want to work with them, at least go on through your day not really worrying about them either. So tuck that in your back pocket, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. See ya! By the way, if you want to see these videos 2 weeks earlier, consider subscribing to my Patreon, where you not only get all these videos, but also recipe cards, specific deity profiles, and lots of other interesting things to look at. Video tiers start at $10 a month, so definitely consider checking it out.